Hi everyone, it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I'd sit down and have kind of a more serious talk with you guys. I wanted to talk about the abusive relationship that I was in high school. So here we go. My senior year of high school was about halfway over at this point. This is around winter break right now. My previous relationship had just ended and this guy seemed to have swooped in right at the time that I was most vulnerable. It was almost as that breakup happened, he slid into my Twitter DMs, which should have been my first red flag. It was almost as if he was stalking me online and saw this opportunity and was like, you know what, I'm gonna try for this girl. At the time I thought that was something really sweet and genuinely romantic, but it wasn't. So I started communicating with this guy. So we're gonna call the guy John. So John and I started talking on Twitter one night, and it was almost like we just stayed up all night talking. That's all we did. Which, okay, great, whatever. But yeah, I just remember staying up all night and like constantly talking to him. But I do remember early on that he got frustrated when I wasn't responding quickly, like saying stuff like, oh, I thought you didn't want to talk to me. And he just was convinced and tried to convince me that I was ignoring him when I wouldn't respond to messages very quickly. And this is the first day, like full day, that we had been talking, and he was already getting really possessive. And that again should have been another red flag, but at the time I just didn't think about it. I was too naive to think about it. So we continued talking for a while. By a while, I mean maybe a week or so, and we decided that we wanted to meet up. So I went to his house to spend time with him, and as I get out of my vehicle, he just full on kissed me and like grabbed me in his arms and like spun me around, which again I thought was romantic, whatever. That day was just very uncomfortable to make out with him and do all that stuff that I shouldn't have been doing with him. But again, I thought, oh, this is romantic, which again, it's not. From that point forward, we were in a relationship, which should have been another red flag that John was so willing to jump into this relationship with me, having known that I had just ended a previous relationship. But whatever. So we continued to see each other. He did go to a different school than I did. He went to one of the Christian schools in my town, and I went to public school. So we didn't go to the same school, which is probably for the best. And then I come to learn he does not have a driver's license. He is 17 years old. I have a driver's license, and he's older than I am. Not much older, we're in the same grade, but he's older than I am. And that's another red flag. No permit, no driver's license, nothing. He had none of that. Which I come to find out was because his mother didn't want him driving, but that's a little strange. So he didn't have a driver's license, therefore I was driving us everywhere, all the time. He came to church with me one day and he assaulted one of my best friends. My best friend was joking around and being kind of silly, but he was totally joking and just messing around. And I don't even think he took it too far, but in the moment I took my boyfriend John's side, which I shouldn't have done. But he was really rude, and from that point forward told me I couldn't hang out with my best friend. So that was really hard for me, and he was telling me that I could no longer be friends with my best friend. Another red flag that I ignored. So I took him home that night. He lived about 25 minutes from my house, and I shouldn't have been driving with anyone in the car with me, and I drove him home. So now I'm lying to my parents. Red flag. And it was, I was in a dark place, and to top all of that off, on top of being really possessive about who I could and couldn't hang out with, he would tell me how I could and couldn't style my hair, what I could wear, stuff like that, where it was very possessive in a way of controlling me to say like, you can't wear this because you'll look slutty and stuff like that, or telling me that I was unattractive and that no one else would want me. And I believed him. I believed him so much so that I stopped caring about my outward appearance at school. I started not wearing makeup and not washing my hair, not brushing my hair, wearing PJs to school. I stopped caring about my actual school, my academics. And we would stay up really late at night talking on the phone, and that's all he wanted to do. And I started to isolate myself from my friends, from my peers, from my teachers. I just wanted to be by myself. So I really stopped, honestly, I stopped giving a shit about what I looked like. He made me feel so low about myself. And the things that he was telling me, I started to believe about myself. I remember going to the beach with my family, and he was constantly just messaging me over and over and over and over. And if I didn't respond within a certain time frame, I was cheating. And it was just, I was constantly being accused of cheating on him with my male friends. I don't really know who, but he thought that he was convinced that I was cheating on him. I would be hanging out with my girlfriends and I was cheating on him. I slept over at my best friend's house and I was cheating on him. And I remember the summertime had come around and I went to camp, and at camp they take your phone away. It's the best week of your entire life. You probably don't believe me, but not having your cell phone was just so freeing. You weren't connected to the web, to the world in a certain way that we are always connected to. So I was super excited about that. Of course, I get my phone back and there's messages and messages and messages and messages, and it was very, very traumatic. And then I do remember the same summer, he told me that he had cheated on me. Big surprise, right? After all the red flags that I'd been through, of course he was cheating on me. He was convinced that I was being unfaithful because he was being unfaithful. John was just this terrible, manipulative piece of garbage. He was forced to tell me. He was getting messages from this guy who was dating someone he had sent explicit photos to, and he said, if you do not tell your girlfriend, here's her Twitter, I found it, I will message her if you do not tell her that you're cheating on her. So that's how I found out. He was guilted into telling me. He didn't feel bad, he just knew he was about to get caught. So he did tell me that he had sent explicit photos to this girl, and I believe she didn't ask for them either. They were just sent to her. But then I come to find out he did kiss one of the girls in his class who had driven him home. He made out with her in a car. Multiple girls that he had sent multiple photos to. I don't really know the extent of those relationships, but more and more came out. I drove to his house. I got in the car and I drove over there. I was furious. This was, of course, after I cried myself to sleep that night and laid on the floor and had a panic attack, and it was one of the worst nights of my life, and even thinking about it right now just hurts. So I drove over to his house and I slapped him as hard as I possibly could across the face. It was magnificent. And then he convinced me to stay with him. I realize now that this was the stupidest thing I have ever done. I understand that. Sorry. I stayed with him and we drove to the park that day, and I posted an Instagram photo talking about how in love we were because I wanted to save face in front of people. I didn't really want them to know what an a-hole he was and that I was stupid enough to be with this person. So we stayed together. So I told him he wasn't allowed to talk to that girl, he wasn't allowed to talk to any females, he needed to delete his Snapchat if he wanted to stay with me. I just gave him lists and lists and lists of all these things that he needed to do to prove to me that he'd be faithful to me this time. I don't really know why I did all of this. I really should have just gotten out of the relationship, but he convinced me that he would do right by me and stay, and we would make things work. So after a summer of going through all of this and him being less possessive but still very possessive, he went to college. He went to one of the colleges in North Atlanta. It's Kennesaw State is where he ended up going, and it's about an hour and a half from my house, and I was just going to go to one of the community colleges. George Gwinnett College was the community college that I ended up going to. So I drove up after the day after move-in day, which was right before my birthday, and we went out to dinner. We came back from dinner and I felt awful. I threw up for probably an hour before I needed to get on the road. I'm puking my guts out because I knew in my gut that this was wrong, and my anxiety was on a level it had never been on before because I was staying with this terrible person. So I puked my guts out. And then I got on the road, and it was probably around 10:30. Keep in mind, I had been puking this whole time. And as I'm driving, his mother starts texting me saying that it was inappropriate for me to stay as late as I did, and who did I think I was, and she's gonna tell my mother, and blah, 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 because she was also one of the most manipulative people I have ever met in my entire life. So she made my drive home a living hell. And I crawled in bed with my mother that night, and I apologized and told her some of the things that had been going on and how upset I was, and I just told her a bunch of stuff because I was so terrified that this woman was going to do everything that she could to ruin my life and to ruin my relationship with my mother. So his mother, I guess, ended up dropping that. I don't even remember what happened with that situation, but we were still dating. And he had made plans to come home on Memorial Day weekend to visit and to come over to my dad's house to go swimming because that's all he wanted to do. He didn't give a crap about my family. He just wanted to swim in our pool. So we continued texting and FaceTiming and doing all of that, and college starts for me. So I started going to college, and I'm not talking to people of the opposite sex because, again, he's this controlling, manipulative person. And so I'm still not really caring about myself. But college has started, and I have a new attitude. So I have put on makeup, and I'm actually trying. And I felt really good about myself. And I sat down with my friend Ellen, and we were having this great conversation, and this guy walks up, who is now my husband, Austin. He walked up, and little did I know, he called dibs on me, and hey, it worked out for him, but I was still dating this manipulative person. So I started talking to Austin, and oh man, I was swooning over him. And so he was amazing. He was so nice to me. He was this sweet, cute guy. He was actually attractive, unlike John, who was very unattractive, both inside and out. And so we had a few conversations, and then I started to feel terrible because I had been texting him. It was nothing inappropriate, but I had a boyfriend, and I didn't tell him that I had one because in my mind, now that he's at Kennesaw and I'm still home in Georgia Gwinnett, he can't mess with me anymore, and I can get out of this relationship, basically. So finally, I tell Austin that I can't continue talking to him because I have a boyfriend and I feel terrible about it. And then Austin and I ran into each other the next day at school. We were at music club that he had invited me to, and so we ran into each other there. And I started talking to him about the relationship I was in, and he said to me, "Abby, whether you date me or not isn't the biggest deal to me, but you need to break up with him. He is abusive mentally, and you don't deserve that. You need to get out of this relationship for your own sanity. You need to break up with him. This isn't safe. You are not safe." And it took him telling me that for me to realize that I didn't need to be in this relationship. I had already known that, of course, like there were all of these red flags, but it took a stranger telling me that I wasn't safe for me to realize that I needed to get out of this relationship. So I made the decision to break up with him on Memorial Day when he came home to visit. I was gonna dump him, I was gonna be done with it. But I did end up going to the gym with Austin. We went to the gym together, and I left my phone in the car because there wasn't great service. We went to the gym, we worked out, whatever, we went and we ate at Panda Express, and then we met up with some friends and we just chatted, and it was really nice. So I got back in the car after that night. It was about 10 o'clock or so, and I get in the car and I have, not lying, 40 messages from him. 8 or 9 phone calls and voicemails from him. I have a phone call from his mother and a voicemail. I have a text message and a phone call from my mother and a voicemail. I have text messages from my friend in Dallas at Georgia Southern and a voicemail saying, "Where the heck are you? John is looking for you and he won't leave us alone." And then the messages from John are like, "Where the hell are you?" and blah, 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 and "You're such a bitch," and the F word, and all this stuff about how terrible and how much of a whore I must be and what I must be doing and that I have to be cheating on him, and on and on and on and on and on and on. So I finally call him back in the car, and he starts screaming at me, using all of the obscenities that he can think of to get out of his mouth. He is spraying at me. It was horrible. So he starts saying, "Are you breaking up with me?" And I said, "John, I'll see you tomorrow." He says, "No, are you breaking up with me? I'll see you tomorrow. You were upset. I did nothing to you because I have now grown a pair and I don't give a crap about what he has to say to me anymore." And so on and on and on and on and on. And finally, he won't stop. And I said, "You know what, John, yes, I'm breaking up with you. You are a manipulative asshole that I don't need in my life and you don't deserve me." Whew, this was my redeeming moment. I dumped him on the phone. While we're on the phone, he starts running out of his dorm at KSU, running around the campus to try to garner my attention and get me to drive up there or give a crap about him. And at this point, I'd taken my life back. He's contacted all of my friends, he's turned some against me, and gone on and on and on. And for weeks, he wouldn't leave me alone. He would call me if he couldn't get to me because I blocked him and his mother. It was just this really dramatic thing that went on and on and on. Speaking of his mother, after I broke up with him, I got a call from her. Actually, it was a text message that said something about the fun and games are over and you need to bring his crap back to my house by such and such day or I'm calling the police and blah, 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 blah. And my father was pissed. He was like, "Ooh, you want me to talk to her? Let me talk to her." He told me what to send to her and said, "You know what, I'll bring it back on my time." Basically, because your son is a garbage person. Because he was. So all of this was really dramatic, and ultimately he wouldn't stop bothering my friend in Dallas. And so finally I saw her, this is Thanksgiving break of that year, and I called him from her phone. Maybe not the best decision, I probably shouldn't have, but we did have about a 10-minute conversation just so I could get closure. I don't really know if he got any closure from it, but I sure did. So I got to have a conversation with him and tell him how horrible he was and that he didn't deserve anyone in life because he was this miserable piece of shit. And I told him how manipulative he was and that he deserved no one, and went on and on and on, and he was trying to yell at me, and I said, "No, I'm not done," and I continued to talk to him, basically saying, "If you ever mess with my friends again, I'll get a restraining order, and I'll do whatever I need to do to get rid of you and keep you out of my friends' lives and out of my life for good. I'm done." So yeah, that is basically the whole story with my high school boyfriend, John. And yeah, and basically how I got rid of him and moved on to someone who was an amazing person and still is. So now I am married to Austin and I am the happiest person on the planet. I tell you all of this just to let anyone out there, girl or boy out there, know that if you're in a relationship like my high school relationship, you need to get out of it. If you have a friend who is in a relationship like this, you need to say something and do something about it because it is unsafe, it is abusive, and it is wrong. And if you are in that relationship, don't be afraid to leave that person. You are an amazing person, and there are far better people out there, better experiences out there, and there are people and friends and family who will give a crap about you and want to be in your life and not manipulate you and make you into something that you're not. It took me years to remember who I was, and there's still times where I doubt myself because of him. And I feel like I don't deserve my husband, and I do. I deserve him, and I deserve the life that I have. So I tell you all of this just so that you understand that relationships like this are horrible, and there's so much more to life. And it might feel like you need to stay with this person because there is nothing else you can do in life, and you're just trapped, and you're stuck, and you just have to keep isolating yourself and deal with it the rest of your life. But you don't. Anyone who's making you feel like that is a terrible human being, and you need to get away from them. Whether that's a relationship or a friendship, you need to leave that person behind. So I am sorry this video was so personal and intense, but I thought it was something that was really important to talk about. So be sure to like this video and subscribe, please, to my channel, and share this video, and hopefully it will reach someone who needs to hear it, and that would be the best thing that could happen from this. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and the rest of your week. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you next week.